Revealed, the sinister secret of the Follings 12 haunted children with unexplained pasts. In a quiet corner of Pennsylvania, Sarah moved into her new home, carrying the weight of 1,000 worries wrapped in a thin veil of hope. For years, she had scraped and struggled, and finally, she had provided for her son Ben, whose bright eyes lit up with joy in their quaint suburban neighborhood. But as the sun dipped low, painting the sky crimson, she heard whispers that sent shivers down her spine. The Follings orphanage, just a stone's throw away, held a haunting legacy of 12 children who vanished without a trace decades ago. The tales twisted through the town like the wind, chilling every heart that dared listen. That first night, creaking floorboards became ominous echoes in the dark. Shadows flickered just beyond their windows, as if they were peering in. Sarah shivered. Some nights, Ben would wake, his small voice quivering with stories of a friend named Sammy. Sarah assumed it was just a plucky child's imagination. But as Ben excitedly described worlds filled with laughter that turned to screams, her heart raced with an unsettling dread. How could he know such things? The grocery store murmurs echoed in her mind like a low growl, speaking of the orphanage's sinister past, stories of children who were never found. Her instincts screamed for the truth. She sought out former caregivers, people who lived in the shadow of the Follings, or so she thought. Their gazes turned cold, lips sealed tighter than the town's crumbling walls. Each denial only stoked the unease curling in her gut. As Ben's conversations grew eerily vivid, painted with memories of playful games and distant cries, Sarah couldn't dismiss them as mere fantasies. Something was wrong, so terribly wrong. The neighbors used to smile at her. Now, they averted their eyes, the air thick with suspicion. What are they hiding? She wondered, clenching her fists. One evening, shadows deepened over their street right before the sun slipped entirely away, engulfing the world in an eerie twilight. The weight of the silence was stifling. And yet, day after day, the community hummed along, feigning normalcy. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That fateful stormy night, thunder rumbled ominously as Sarah woke to soft whimpers. Rushing into Ben's room, she found him sitting up, eyes wide with terror. "Mommy," Sammy said. "They're watching," he whispered, frantically pointing toward the window, where a dark silhouette lingered beyond the glass. The way the shadows danced made her heart pound, fear clawing at her insides. She felt the world tilt as she instinctively pulled Ben close, her pulse echoing in her ears. The unsettling truth began to dawn on her: this darkness, this silence, was not just a passing storm. It was a warning. The community was hiding something sinister, a truth buried beneath layers of innocence, and it clawed at her heels like the very shadows that reached through her window. Sarah's thoughts raced. Would she be able to protect Ben from the very forces trying to claim him? As her determination hardened, she knew she had to confront the malevolence born from the past. The past wasn't just a memory, it was a living thing, and it hungered. Thunder cracked again, louder this time, rattling the very core of the house. Sarah held Ben tight as tears threatened to spill from her eyes. "We need to get away from here," she whispered, her heart racing. But the shadows outside didn't retreat. Instead, they slithered closer, wrapping around the corners of her vision, beckoning to her with a silent call. Ben's grip tightened around her neck. "Mommy. Sammy says it's time to play." "Play." The word fell from her lips like shattered glass. She glanced out the window again, her stomach knotting. The silhouette remained, darker than the night itself. "No more games, Ben. We're going to." Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the walls, shaking the paintings hanging crookedly. What was that? Ben squeaked, eyes wide, his breath coming in fast bursts. Sarah's heart sank as another thud reverberated, closer this time. "Stay here," she commanded, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her. She slid out from under Ben, her heart hammering. Every instinct told her to run, to escape the oppressive air suffocating them inside the house. As she crept towards the door, a chilling laugh echoed from the depths of the shadows, hollow and mirthless. "Sarah, come and play," it floated through the still air, teasing her mind, wrapping itself around her thoughts. She froze. "Who is there?" she called, forcing her voice to remain even. The silhouette at the window shifted, a face slowly emerging from the darkness. Hollow eyes stared back, devoid of life. It was a child's face twisted in an unsettling smile. And yet something felt terribly wrong. Ben moved toward the window, but Sarah bolted back, snatching his arm. "No. Stay away." He looked up at her, confusion and fear mingling on his small face. "But Sammy is my friend. Sammy is not real," she snapped, wishing she could take back the words as they left her mouth. She knelt, brushing her hands through Ben's hair. "Listen to me. We have to leave, now." But as she turned to grab coats, an overwhelming sensation of cold washed over her. The air grew thick like molasses, claws of dread wrapping around her throat. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the hallway, dancing from wall to wall. Ben's breathing quickened. "Mommy, I don't want to play anymore." The laugh returned, more menacing this time. Too late, Sarah, we've already begun. Panic rushed through her veins as she lunged for the door. But as she turned the knob, it wouldn't budge. "No, no, no." She pushed harder, desperation spilling out in her voice, rattling her thoughts. "What is happening?" A soft knock sounded on the opposite side. Hesitantly, she turned to Ben. His eyes were wide, reflecting the same terror she felt inside. "Mommy," he whispered again, "Sammy wants to meet you. It's time." And before she could respond, the door flew open, revealing a dark expanse that swallowed the light. Shadows poured in, coiling around their feet. Not just one but many children wearing old, ripped clothing, hollow smiles plastered on their faces, eyes gleaming with something almost alive. They stepped closer, reaching out tiny hands. "Come play with us, Sarah." Her breath caught in her throat. She could feel the pull of the shadows, a combined force that promised secrets but held danger. With nowhere left to turn, she scooped Ben into her arms, heart racing, adrenaline screaming. "Get back," she yelled, but the children continued to creep forward, their laughter growing louder, merging with echoes of fragmented cries. The darkness pressed harder, swallowing every glimmer of hope. As they closed in, Sarah understood all at once that she had awakened something old, something angry. The past wasn't just a memory, it was a living nightmare. Hungry for more, Sarah ran, but the walls of the house seemed to bend, warping around her. The laughter turned into wails as she sprinted for the back door, desperate for escape, desperate for safety. But as she turned the corner she felt cold hands grasping her shoulders from behind. "Playtime is just beginning," the voice whispered in her ear. The darkness closed in even tighter. Sarah's world began to fade beneath the raucous chorus of laughter and sobs. What had she awakened? And how could she and Ben ever escape the grip of the Follings? The hands gripping Sarah tightened, icy fingers pressing into her skin. She spun around, adrenaline surging, pulling Ben closer to her chest. "Get away from us!" she screamed, her voice breaking against the onslaught of spectral laughter. The children loomed, eyes glowing like distant stars in the blackness, smiles wide enough to split their faces. "Play with us," they chanted, their voices echoing in twisted harmony. The words wrapped around her, suffocating and seductive. "Mommy!" Ben cried out, trembling in her grip, his little voice barely rising above the cacophony. "I don't want to play." Sarah's heart plummeted. "We have to go, Ben. Now." She bolted down the hallway, her feet pounding against the wooden floor, the shadows behind her swirling like a storm. Just when she thought she had a moment of reprieve, she slammed into an invisible wall. A sudden coldness spread through her as if the very air conspired against her escape. The laughter grew louder, a cruel symphony celebrating her despair. Sarah, a voice cooed from the darkness, smooth and velvety, pulling at her sanity. Don't you want to know our secret? She shook her head violently. No. I want to leave. But the force of the shadows tightened around her, pulling her back, weightless as if the house had become a living entity tethering her to her nightmare. The Follings have always played with children like you. A flash of memory tore through her. A faded newspaper clipping flashed across her mind, a mysterious disappearance of kids decades ago. Were they twisted into this torment? Mommy. Ben's whimper brought her back to the forefront. She spun to face him, and her heart shattered. He was staring wide-eyed at the children, a strange light flickering in his expression. They're my friends, Mommy. Sammy said they just want to play. Ben, listen to me. They're not friends. Panic flooded her. We have to get out, please focus. She could see her son slipping away, lost in the darkness, enchanted by what lay ahead. The laughter crescendoed, and Sarah felt the house sway. Don't fight us. Join us. They sang, stretching their cold fingers closer. She took a step back, trying to shield Ben with her own body. With a deep breath, she tore her eyes from the glowing figures and focused on the back door. Run! She shouted. She sprinted, dragging Ben, feeling the shadows claw at her heels, but there was no stopping now. They reached the door. It swung open into a darkened yard, moonlit but foreboding, and on the porch stood a girl, pale, with hair like wilted grass, smiling deceptively sweet. We've been waiting for you, come join the game. Beneath her calm facade, dread filled Sarah's heart. No. She yelled, turning to push Ben through the door. Don't look back. But as she thrust Ben ahead, something yanked at her hair, and she stumbled, falling hard to the ground. The children surrounded her, their laughter twisting into howls of anguish that echoed against her thoughts. Join us, Sarah, the leader whispered, the child's face smoothing out, becoming eerily familiar. You can't escape what you've awoken. No. I won tea. Sarah scrambled to her feet, desperate to grab Ben, see his face, but he was already being pulled into the mass of shadows, eyes wide yet dim. Mommy. Help. His voice cut through her like a blade. She fought against the tide of despair, breaking through the children's grip. The world around her vibrated with their wails, losing coherence. Ben. She cried, lunging for him. Their eyes met for a fleeting second, the bond of mother and son fighting against the darkness, then the shadows surged, cutting off her view. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the world, revealing something she hadn't anticipated. The children weren't just lost souls, they were reflections of herself and Ben from times unremembered, souls trapped within a game meant to ensnare them both. How could you? Sarah gasped, realizing the truth, but the shadows lunged, swallowing her scream. And just like that, the light disappeared, enveloping her and Ben in absolute, consuming darkness. What more did the Follings want? What secrets lay hidden in their twisted game? And could love and determination outshine this unfathomable fear? The darkness wrapped around Sarah like a heavy blanket, suffocating and relentless. She struggled to breathe, to see, to understand. The chill seeped into her bones, gnawing at her resolve. She could still hear Ben's voice, faint and fading, echoing in the void. Mommy. Help. Panic surged within her, raw and wild. Ben. She screamed, each syllable tearing at her throat. A moment of clarity cut through the thick fog. She needed to think. The house was alive. Every inch of it pulsed with energy, hungry and insatiable. Frantic, she swung her head from side to side, searching for any hint of light, any sign of her son. The shadows danced around her, swirling like smoke. The children's laughter morphed into whispers, crawling into her ears, burrowing into her mind. Play with us, they taunted, their voices dripping with malice. They were drawing her deeper into their game, but Sarah refused to give in. She stumbled forward, feeling for a wall. Her fingertips grazed the cool surface, it felt like the skin of the house itself. She had to find a way to break through, to escape. "We can't stay here, Ben." She shouted again, unsure if he could still hear her. In the oppressive silence that followed, a tiny flicker of hope ignited. She remembered the way out the back door. If she could just reach it with a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah pushed against the wall, clawing her way toward the door. But the shadows pressed heavier, coiling around her legs, pulling her back. She fell to one knee, grasping the floor tightly as if it might anchor her to reality, then she heard it a giggle, soft and teasing. And there was Ben's voice again, closer this time. "Mommy, look. They want to show us something." "No. Ben." The desperation in her throat burned like fire. "Listen to me. They're not your friends." But it was too late. The shadows seemed to shimmer, transforming into a swirling vortex of colors, shapes, and faces, each one reminiscent of Ben, twisted in joyous delight. Shadows morphed, revealing fleeting glimpses of long-lost children, faces of the past, forever smiling yet hollow. Sarah's heart raced. Was this what they wanted? To show her the past, to rewrite the narrative? Memories flickered like faulty light bulbs. Laughter. Games. Playful innocence turned sour. The burned edges of her own childhood stitched together, a tapestry of lost souls. With reckless determination, she surged to her feet, breaking free from the shadow's grip. "I want to let you take my son," she roared, her voice infused with a fierce energy she didn't know she possessed. The walls reverberated, rattling against her declaration. Then, with a sudden surge of adrenaline, she spun around, eyes blazing with fear and fury. "Ben! Stay close. We're getting out." The shadows recoiled at her resolve, flickering like a candle before a fierce wind, and she dashed toward the door. The phantom laughter began to falter, replaced by an ominous silence, as if the house itself was holding its breath. She reached for the doorknob, its surface solid and warm in her grasp. Just as she twisted it open, an icy hand clamped onto her wrist. Whirling around, she met the pale face of the girl from the porch. "You can't leave. You haven't finished the game." A shriek lodged in Sarah's throat as she realized the shadow children were encircling her once more, eyes glinting with malicious glee. "What happens now?" Sarah cried out as the girl's grip tightened. The world spun, colors bleeding together in a dizzying blur. In that moment, a revelation erupted, a truth that might save them or doom them both. "Sarah, you have to." Ben's faint voice surfaced, cutting through the noise, a thread of connection in the madness, but before she could grasp it, shadows surged, drowning out the last remnants of hope. What did this game demand? And what dark secret lingered in the air, waiting to present its final challenge? The answers felt trapped within the folds of darkness, much like innocent souls longing for release. The shadows tightened their grip, squeezing the warmth from Sarah's wrist. Panic threaded through her veins. "Let him go," she shouted, pulling against the girl's hold. The air crackled with energy, the house pulsating around her like a living, breathing thing. The girl's laughter rang out, a sound that felt old and broken, echoing through the dark. "You can't play without knowing the rules. Would you sacrifice one to save another? Stop. Stop." Sarah could feel her heart hammering in her chest. The girl's eyes, bright and unyielding, bore into her, holding her in place as swirling memories flickered around them, flashes of children lost to time, their stories left unfinished. "No!" Sarah screamed, her voice rising in defiance. She couldn't let them see her fear. "I want to choose. I'll save us both." But the shadows pulsed with anticipation, hissing softly like snakes awakening after a long slumber. The girl's grip was unrelenting, and Sarah felt the weight of the darkness pressing in. Images blurred past, children's faces flickering to life only to twist into expressions of anguish. "Play along, or it all ends, for you both," the girl whispered, her breath a cold whisper that seeped into Sarah's bones. In that moment, Sarah's resolve solidified. If this house wants a game, I'll give it one, she spat, surprising even herself. With a surge of energy, she wrenched free from the girl's grasp, lungs burning from the effort. Before she could think, she dashed toward the shadows, her feet pounding against the floor as cold air swirled around her. Come play with us. The voices beckoned, their tones shifting from sinister to almost playful, like a twisted lullaby haunting her steps. Children's laughter enveloped her as she plunged deeper into the darkness, knowing she had no choice but to face what lay ahead. Then, abruptly, the laughter faded, replaced by a quiet that buzzed in her ears. The corridor stretched endlessly, each door seeming an invitation to madness. Sarah fell to her knees, desperation clawing at her. Ben! She shouted, her voice echoing, unanswered. The shadows slithered closer, taunting her with fleeting glimpses of her son's playful nature, his genuine smile illuminating the deep dark. Mommy, come play! Echoed in her mind, leaving her breathless. She had to find him. She had to fight. Rising to her feet, she charged forward. Each room she passed held dark secrets, puppet strings dangling from the ceiling in a space once occupied by joyful spirits, puddles of inky sadness pooling beneath a shattered window. Ghostly whispers swirled, nudging her back toward the front of the house, but Sarah pressed on, fueled by a mother's love. She remembered Ben's laughter, his innocent voice filled with joy before all this began. The shadows danced around her, whispering things she didn't want to hear, twisting the very fabric of her memories. She couldn't let them win. Then, a flicker of light pierced the darkness ahead. Sarah's heart raced as she sprinted toward it, hope igniting inside her. Was it a way out? Or was it a trap? She couldn't tell, but she had no choice. She had to know. As she crossed the threshold, the room drowned in brightness before collapsing back into shades of gray. In the center lay a dusty, ancient mirror, dimly reflecting what lay behind it. A shallow breath escaped her lips at the edge, a figure appeared, a child who looked strikingly like Ben. Mommy! The child breathed, reaching out. But before she could grasp his hand, the mirror shattered, scattering glass like stars in a dark sky. As the pieces fell, the shadows surged closer, coal-black fingers clawing at her. The girl from the porch materialized once more, eyes ablaze. Now the game truly begins. Sarah's heart plummeted. What must she confront now? What sinister truth lay hidden within the shards of the mirror? The chilling realization dawned that the game had only just begun, and the rules had shifted in ways she could never anticipate. Would she be able to save Ben in time, or would they both be lost in the game's abyss forever? The darkness surged, devouring the light like a hungry predator. Sarah stumbled backward, shards of the shattered mirror crunching underfoot, each step echoing her dread. The girl's laughter bounced off the walls, a haunting melody intertwined with the whispers of sorrow's past. You've let them see you. Now they'll never leave. Stay back. Sarah screamed. But her voice barely touched the encroaching shadows, which twisted and writhed like a storm come to life. Each face echoed around her, their hollow eyes pleading, laughing, and warning at once. The girl took a step closer, her smile twisting into something jagged. You understand now, don't you? We are all part of the game. Each choice dictates who remains and who fades away forever. Images flickered through Sarah's mind, trapped children with expressions frozen between joy and terror. They need you to choose, the girl murmured, her voice a cold caress. Would you like to know who they are? What they give up for whispers and shadows? No. Sarah shouted, clenching her fists. She wouldn't entertain this nightmare. I want to let you take my son. The shadows laughed, an inky chorus blending with the girl's sinister glee. They no longer just crowded her, they swirled around her, pulling at her clothes, trying to drag her down. With a deep breath, Sarah forcefully lowered her head, channeling every ounce of her determination into a single thought, Ben. She had to find him, the corridor spun and warped as she struggled against the dark tide. Each door she passed seemed to beckon her in, promising revelations wrapped in horror. She hesitated, hearing muffled cries of the lost within. But she couldn't. She had to move. Then she heard it again, a child's soft voice, filled with innocence and despair. "Mommy, please, Ben." She ran without hesitation, following the faint echo that resonated in her chest. The walls throbbed, seeming to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, guiding her deeper into the house's sinister core. She burst through another door, panting. The room was a ruins of crushed toys and tattered drawings, remnants of lives interrupted. In the center stood a set of old wooden swings creaking in the silence, swaying as if stirred by an unseen breeze. A paper fluttered in the corner, its edges singed. Rushing over, she snatched it up. Her heart sank as she read the ghastly words scrawled with trembling hands. "To escape, you must let one find peace, or they all shall suffer forever." What kind of choice was this? "Will you play?" The girl's voice broke in, now seeming closer, more taunting. "Will you sacrifice your own heart?" The room shifted abruptly, widening as shadows deepened, stretching around her, whispering accusations and wishes long forgotten. Each whispered word was a stone, heavy in her mind. "Save him," they hissed in unison, "or lose him forever." Fear and despair clawed at her insides, and just as she thought the weight would crush her, the winds of the house howled, lifting the chill against her skin. She spun around, her eyes darting for Ben, desperate to hold on to hope through the mounting chaos, and then, there he was standing just out of reach, ghostly pale, framed against a gaping window. "Mommy!" His little hand stretched toward her, but behind him loomed a shadow darker than night. "Choose." The girl shrieked, a wild light dancing in her eyes. "One must pay the price." Sarah's breath quickened, heart clanging in her chest. She felt torn apart, the damning weight of their fates resting on her shoulders. Would she save the one she loved, or would she risk losing him forever? As Sarah took a step towards her son, the final rule of the game sunk deep into her chest, a game with terrifying stakes. What would she do? Who would she sacrifice? In that haunting moment filled with dread, the shadows slinked closer, awaiting her choice, and there, at the edge of the darkness, a single, glowing orb of light burst forth, illuminating a path. But to where? What lurked ahead? A way out? Or a new nightmare entirely? The orb pulsed with light, bathing the room in an otherworldly glow that both beckoned and repelled Sarah. It was a promise. A chance. But what lay within that brightness? A way out? Or an even darker truth? "Mommy, please!" Ben cried again, his little fingers stretching as if he'd burst through the glass any second. The shadow behind him leered, a mass of swirling tendrils, creeping like smog. Sarah's heart raced as her instincts screamed at her to move toward him. "No!" The girl shrieked, her voice slicing through the tension. "Pick the price. The light or your son. One must be let go." The word "price" echoed hammering into her ears. It twisted in her chest, making it hard to breathe. Who were these children? What had they given up? And why was she being asked to join in their game? "Ben!" she cried, desperation choking her. She felt as if the walls were closing in, the shadows gambling for her despair, drawing even closer. "I won't leave you." "Then let it be you. Or him." The girl cackled, the shadows nodding like a chorus of sinister dancers. Each nod sent chills through Sarah. She couldn't see their faces, but she felt their hollow eyes on her, searching, judging. Suddenly, the air again thickened, charging with static. The glowing orb flickered, illuminating fragments of anguished memories trapped within the room's confines. Images twisted around her, children weeping, their faces devoid of joy, lost in the shadows. Some were crying out for their own mothers, their voices rising into a chaotic symphony that rattled her resolve. "Make your choice." The girl screeched, and the shadows roared in response. "He will suffer endlessly, suffering will replace joy, or you can take a step." But only one can be saved. A frigid wind whipped through the space, pushing Sarah back, the warmth of hope seeping away as doubt crept in. What does it mean? She shouted. Who do I even choose? You're all just lost like me. Only I can know the truth. The girl replied, her voice a hushed whisper now, almost soothing, drawing Sarah in. But the shadows have their own secrets, and each story follows a thread of pain. Whose fault is it if you lose them both? Sarah's stomach twisted as the weight of the girl's words sank in. A cold realization wrapped around her spine, saving Ben might mean condemning the lost souls swirling around her. But how could she give up on her son? Mommy. I'm scared. Ben called, his little voice quaking, trembling like a fragile leaf in the wind. Each word felt like a dagger to Sarah's heart, twisting deeper. As the shadows surged, a sensation prickled at her mind, the memories of the children began breaking free like broken glass falling from the sky. Each shard echoed screams, each cry resonated with guilt, the burden of solitude intermingled with prey-like fear. Was it for her son she had to choose? Or was it for the lost children behind the darkness, the ones whose cries mingled with Ben's own? The orb glowed fiercely, reflecting the struggle within her, illuminating the truth that rippled in the fabric of her choices. If she leapt toward the light, what truly awaited her? Would she take the plunge alone or attempt to save them all, even if it meant sacrificing everything she had left? With a racing heart, Sarah made her choice, and the shadows leaned in, hungry, expectant. As she stepped forward, the house shuddered, and the laughter turned to howling cries. The room collapsed into despair as the air thickened. What had she unleashed? Behind her, a door creaked open, shadows dissipating, inviting. And through it, blurred figures flickered, mirroring the children once more, their faces disfigured and pleading. Had she chosen wisely? Or unleashed a fate worse than fear itself? What merciless trials awaited her next? The moment her foot crossed the threshold, a piercing chill rushed through Sarah. The door slammed shut behind her, a finality that echoed like a tightening noose. The room was different now, a kaleidoscope of shadows, swirling with dread, constricting around her like vines growing tighter. Before her, a long hallway stretched, dimly lit by glowing orbs that pulsed in rhythm with her racing heart. The walls were grimy, peeling paint revealing a stark white beneath, like bones showing through decaying flesh. Whispers accompanied her every tentative step, voices intertwined, calling out in haunting harmony. Help us please! Each plea sent shudders down her spine. The children's cries blended with her own fear, blending the past and the present until she could hardly tell where one ended and the other began. She pressed forward, drawn by an impulse she couldn't name, as though the very air compelled her to discover what lay at the end of this forsaken path. Ben. She called out, but the word faded, swallowed by the suffocating shadows. Panic surged as she tightened her grip on her chest, willing her pounding heart to slow, to find some sort of control. Then, in the flickering half-light, she saw them, figures emerging, gray and spectral, their faces a hodgepodge of anguish and longing. Children, just like Ben. They floated, not quite touching the ground, their eyes hollow, devoid of hope. Join us, one of the children whispered, reaching out with a translucent hand. We can play forever. No. Sarah shouted, shaking her head. I can't. I'm here for my son. A dark chuckle echoed through the corridor, reverberating like thunder. The shadows began to writhe and contort, dragging themselves towards her with sinister intent. Your choice has consequences, another child hissed. You can't save both. She felt the weight of their words. The memories flowed like a torrent, and suddenly she was standing in a field, laughter surrounding her. Ben was there, alive and joyful, but as she turned, shadows swept in, blocking the sun, smothering the laughs, distorting the scene. It was like a dream slipping from her grasp, the colors turning gray and dull. Which will you choose? The girl's voice returned, punctured by the cries of haunted children, specters of failure she'd never known. Your son or your soul? Terror gripped Sarah so fiercely she staggered backward, once again feeling the icy hand of the shadow grasping her leg, pulling her down toward dark oblivion. She squirmed against it, but it was relentless, a creeping dread inching closer. The walls seemed to pulse as if the house itself breathed in her fear. "Ben!" she cried, louder this time, and the sound rippled through the darkness. At that moment, the ground rumbled, cracks splitting the hallway before her, opening into a gaping maw of endless darkness that beckoned with promises of both suffering and salvation. She could see glimpses of twisted visages, children contorted in agony, trapped in despair, the hushed whispers now a cacophony of screams. As she grappled with her decision, the shadows danced wildly, shrugging off the remnants of her hope. "What will it be?" the girl taunted, her voice slithering like smoke through the air. "Sacrifice for freedom or hold on to love? Either way, the choice devours." Sarah gritted her teeth, caught between her overwhelming dread and fierce love for her son. Desperation set in as she felt herself teetering on the edge, about to plummet into the void. What awaited her at the bottom? Would she find solace, or would the truth drag her down into the shadows forever? Before she could react, a scream split the air, a piercing cry that sounded all too familiar. It was Ben. "Mommy!" The sound shattered her resolve. Time froze as she rushed toward the source of the voice, where love and horror collided, but at what cost? The darkness swirled, eager, hungry for her choice. Would she find Ben? Or unleash a fate she could never escape? Everything around her trembled, the echoes of her son's call reverberating through the shadows. She forged ahead, heart pounding, a drumbeat of desperation driving her forward. As she neared the crack in the floor, she felt the weight of every child's gaze upon her, burning cold against her skin. "Mommy!" The shout surged through her, raw and terrified. Nothing else mattered. She reached the edge, peering into the abyss. No bottom, no safety, just swirling darkness that beckoned with sinister whispers like uninvited guests. She gulped, then took a breath, steadying her resolve. "Ben!" she cried out again, voice cracking, heart racing. A spectral breeze swept through the hall, blowing wisps of hair across her face. The shadows danced eagerly, and the figures shifted, growing bolder. Their eyes now glinted with menace. Just then, one of the children stepped forward, a boy with tattered clothes and vacant eyes. "You want him," he said, voice hollow. "But this place? It's a trap. It's hunger for choices, for lives." The air grew thick, the darkness drawing closer. Sarah clutched her arms, chilled to her core. "What do you mean?" she whispered. The boy stepped nearer, reaching out. "In here, love comes at a price. It feasts on decisions. Will you take what's left or throw your heart to the shadows?" Images flickered through her mind. Stray glances of children playing, laughter mingled with cries. Visions of Ben flash, his innocent smile trapped in the web of haunting laughter that filled her. "What price?" Sarah asked, barely able to control her voice. "Some bare wounds of betrayal, of mothers who chose darkness." The air grew dense with pain. Shadows pulsed like a heartbeat. Figures pressed around her, faces twisted in anguish. She was surrounded now, enveloped in a storm of despair. "Help us!" they squealed, voices rising, a cacophony of agony. "Help us please! Ben!" Her call turned frenzied, panic slicing the air. The floor quaked beneath her, the crack widening into a gaping chasm. She teetered on the edge, teetering between her desire to leap into the abyss and the pull of the spectral children who begged for her to heed their pleas. The boy spoke again, urgency in his fading tone. "Save him, or you'll join. You'll never escape." Each word struck like a hammer. The temptation surged, both infuriating and intoxicating. Sarah's breaths grew shallow as fear clawed at her throat. She could see Ben, just beyond reach. A flicker of light on the horizon of darkness pulled at her heartstrings, but just as quickly, it faltered. "If you save one, you'll be lost to the other." The children wailed as one, shadows writhing with every syllable. The ground shook violently now, walls cracking, shadows screaming in hunger. She clung to the threshold, balancing on the brink of madness. "Mommy! Please!" Ben cried again, his voice a lifeline slicing through the discord. She closed her eyes hard, the world tilting. Memories flooded her, Ben's first steps, his laughter, the warmth of his little hand in hers. But darkness lurked, gnawing, waiting. "Choose." The children demanded, their voices melding into one thunderous growl. From behind her, the shadows surged, twisting the fabric of the hallway. A lump formed in her throat, fear and love colliding. "Ben!" She shouted one last time before she leaped, plunging into the unknown, every ounce of her heart hoping to grasp her son. What would she find in the depths? Would love conquer all, or had she damned herself to join shadows forever? The darkness swallowed her whole, a whisper of promises cascading around her, all too eager to revel in her decision. But as she descended, a new sound emerged, a laugh, smooth and sultry. "Welcome," it teased, a voice she recognized only too well. With every moment in the falling void, Sarah's heart pounded louder, the question looming larger: had she just sealed their fates, or could she break the cycle of despair? As Sarah's world spiraled deeper into the abyss, the cacophony of shadows engulfed her. She remained suspended in a dark void, heart racing, fear consuming her. "Mommy!" Ben's voice echoed through the dark, a lifeline in the enveloping dread. Driven by overwhelming love, she fought against the currents of despair that threatened to drag her down. In a split second, memories flooded her mind, their life together, the way he laughed, the warmth of his tiny body nestled against hers. And suddenly, the darkness shimmered, morphing into fleeting, colorful images, each one more vivid than the last. Ben caught in a bright bubble of laughter, his face illuminated by joy all around him. Sarah felt her heart burst with a fierce determination to pull him back into their reality. With a primal scream, she reached deep within, past the clutches of anguish and the haunting laughter that no longer amused her. "Ben! I'm coming!" she shouted, voice hoarse but resolute. She pushed forward, anchoring herself in her love for him, desperate to swim against the tide of grief, determined to break free. The void churned around her, thick and heavy, but with each beat of her heart, she felt a spark growing inside her, a light fueled by the love that thrummed between mother and son. She had been mistaken, the shadows were not merely a threat but a manifestation of her deepest fears. Then, her feet hit solid ground. Sarah gasped, blinking rapidly as reality seeped back in. She found herself standing in a vast room bathed in an ethereal glow, illuminated by glimmers that shimmered like stars. Around her, shadow children watched, their hollow eyes gleaming with hope and curiosity instead of malice. "Welcome back, Sarah," the girl whispered, her voice soothing yet unnerving. "You've made your choice." Sarah's breath quickened as she looked around, searching for Ben, panic twisting her gut. "Where is he? Where's my son?" she demanded. The shadows whispered among themselves, their voices a soft breeze, swirling with secrets. Suddenly, the walls pulsed, withdrawing into the mist that revealed an image, a translucent figure of Ben, playing in a sunlit meadow, laughter painting joy across his face. Sarah's heart filled with relief, but it quickly turned to dread as the girl stepped forward once more, her voice now commanding. "To save him, you must accept the truth. One must become part of the shadows to free the other." The words hung heavy in the air, echoing in her mind. "No!" Sarah shouted, tears streaming down her face. "I want to lose him. I am his mother. I'll fight this." Just then, a flicker of recognition sparked in the eyes of the children, the shimmering souls of those lost who once played in fields like the one she saw. They whispered encouragement, "You've awakened courage, Sarah, we need you to choose differently." An understanding unfurled within Sarah. "You don't want to play anymore," she said, her voice steadier. "You want peace. You deserve freedom." The girl recoiled, shadows flickering around her like agitated flames. "But you'll lose him too." "No. I will not fight against the darkness by giving up what I love." Sarah took a deep breath, anchoring her resolve. If this house needs a sacrifice, let it be me. They deserve to be freed, not chained to this pain. At that moment, the shadows surged around her, pulsating with energy, twisting with confusion and fury. You would leave your child. And I will love him fiercely until the end. The declaration shook the very foundation of the room, and suddenly the light pulsed brighter, wrapping around her tighter. A blinding radiance erupted, and for a moment, all was still. When the light dimmed, Sarah found herself standing face to face with Ben, his eyes wide with confusion and love. "Mommy!" he breathed, leaping into her embrace. "Ben! I found you!" Sarah squeezed him hard, grounding herself in his warmth. But as she held him, the house began to shift, shadows trembling. "Choose!" the girl shouted, her shadowy form flickering as if struggling against the light. "Let go, become one with the dark." But before Sarah could respond, the children encircled her and Ben, their faces softening, whispering together, weaving a promise. They extended small hands, shimmering and radiant. "Let us be free too!" they cried, their voices rising in hopeful harmony. "Together! Together!" Sarah echoed, her heart swelling with an urgency fueled by love. She opened her heart wide, surrendering to the inevitable. Just as Ben quivered in her embrace, a burst of luminescent energy exploded outward, filling the space with warmth and joy, chasing away the shadows like dawn chasing the night. With every heartbeat, Sarah pushed against despair, and as she and the children joined together, the walls of the past fractured, releasing whispers of trapped souls into the light. The house trembled and shook, collapsing into beams of hope, scattering across the skies that eye in the aftermath. As the dust settled and the last remnants of darkness faded, Sarah held Ben tighter. Together, they stepped out into the sun-drenched world outside the Follings haunted halls, breathless, alive, and freed. As they turned to look back, the shadows were still and quiet, no longer menacing but peaceful. "Mommy, are they okay?" Ben looked up, hope spilling from his eyes. "Yes," Sarah whispered, her chest swelling with love and pride. "They're finally free." With hands held and hearts unyielding, Sarah and Ben began their journey home, leaving behind the sinister echoes of the past and embracing a future filled with light. They knew love would always guide them through the darkness. But before she took another step, she turned, a thought bursting forth. Please, everyone watching, if you've enjoyed this journey, you need to subscribe to the channel right now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button so we can spread our stories far and wide. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Let's share this amazing journey together. Don't wait even one more second to tell at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending. Let us spread the love and light.